Alexis Nunes. She's outside the stadium where the United States and England just wrapped up. Alexis, great to have you with us here on Futbol Americas, as always. I'm curious, one, what was the percentage in terms of U.S. fans versus England fans, and then kind of what role did the crowd play in this game?
Yeah, Sebby, you know I'm all about the vibes, and I'm so happy to be back on the show. And literally when I came here, I mean, one thing I'm used to seeing is England fans. And literally when I had to get stuff for the social media, you know I'm always thinking about the gram, I was set out to get some England fans, hoping they'd be full of song. I have a couple of friends who are over here from the UK. They told me they've been in the pub since midday, so you can imagine the kind of state I was expecting them to be in. And all I encountered was USA being chanted from every nook and cranny from this stadium. I must say they were trying to give the Mexican fans a run for their money in terms of vibes here. It really felt like, you know, a good percentage of the U.S. fans really took over this stadium tonight. And I actually think that 12th man really played a massive role in this tonight. Literally from one side there was filled with U.S. fans, the other side was filled with a block of the England fans, and where we sat in the middle, it was a nice mix of both. And where we were, I was actually in front of a row of England fans, and behind me was a row of England fans, and I was hearing the US fans who were 3 rows down and 3 rows up. It was amazing, and every time they started chanting or singing, they were so vocal, you know, calling out the players, telling them almost where to pass. You know, we're all managers in our own minds, but they really provided such a good atmosphere, and it was such a difference, because we know that there has been a lot of questions surrounding Greg Berhalter, and everybody thinks that they could put out a better 11 or a better way of playing than he can, but they felt like they really got behind him in this one. They really were impressed with what we saw. Weston McKennie had some turns on some of the England defenders. Even the last game, I remember I saw one of the Iranian players left Kieran Trippier, I think, back at Newcastle, and we saw it again today, and Weston was putting on such a nice show, and the fans were absolutely loving it. It was a little bit of a joga bonito every now and again for the USA. And England, well, I did have a chat with a friend or two at halftime, and he did suggest that maybe a hangover kind of hit the England fans early at halftime, because they had the whole of the first half to kind of sober up after being at the pub from midday. But they weren't their usual full of song as I'm used to hearing back in the UK, which was a bit interesting to see, because usually, like I said, they are, and they usually get behind this squad, and they only started cheering or counter cheering whenever the USA would start their chants, whenever they would start the USA, or whenever they would start that "we believe that we will win." That's the time that the England fans decided to say, okay, now we're going to come to song. But, you know, I felt like England definitely could have used a bit more oomph on the pitch, and they really could have used a lot more oomph off of it from their 12th man. So definitely, in terms of vibes, USA wins this one.
All right, Alexis, give me the other side of that coin. What would be the general sentiment right now you live in the UK, back in England with this tie?
Well, I mean, like I said, halftime, I already started speaking to a couple of friends I have back in the UK, and they literally said, can you believe, I want to put on my best England accent, but I'm not going to embarrass myself. They said, can you believe that they are all over us like this? I never expected this. And, you know, for so many months now, I suppose, leading up to the US, leading up to this World Cup, when we're talking about the US, we keep talking about how this is a golden generation. I remember speaking to Matt Turner when we were in Murcia for that match against Saudi Arabia, and saying, you know, do you feel like this is the USA's best chance in so long to beat England? And he actually straight up said, yeah, this is. Yet still, for some reason, even Weston McKennie had said it to us as well in one of the presses before the Japan game. He says he still feels that no matter how many players they have in Europe doing well, they still just don't get the respect they deserve. And that was the consensus from the England fans. I think they actually were caught by surprise. Yes, they're used to seeing the likes of Christian Pulisic and Tyler Adams playing, you know, especially in the UK, but I don't think they really expected them on this stage with all of the firepower that we know England have. Like I said, we were near some of the US fans, and when we saw the likes of Marcus Rashford and Phil Foden and Jack Grealish warming up, the US fans were like, oh my God, I almost forgot England had these guys. It was actually, you know, a bit terrifying to them, and they were just saying, guys, don't get tired. They were trying to like will on Yunus Musa, like, don't get tired, don't get tired. So really, we spoke to some England fans just now, and they said that they kind of take this draw as a loss, with all due respect to the US, and they admitted that they definitely were surprised. And then we spoke to some U.S. fans, and they said this kind of feels like a win. I know there's still a lot of work to do, and I know it's not, you know, the perfect time to celebrate, but they do feel like they can pat themselves on the back because this is an England team that have been named, you know, as favorites to win this entire World Cup, to top the group. You know, we know the depth in squad that they have. We know that they have a lot of starters week in, week out in some of the biggest leagues in the world, and I think everyone expected nothing less than a win. I remember getting predictions from fans before the game, and I think the least amount of goals they saw scoring on the U.S. was 3. People were saying 3-0, 4-0. So I think the fact that it ended 0-0, England felt like they were taking this as a loss. And the U.S., I know they don't want to celebrate just yet, but I think they're happy to give themselves a big pat on the back tonight.
Alexis, last time we had you here on Futbol Americas, it was in the aftermath of Mexico against Poland. Now, in that game, there was no doubt about what the moment of the match was. Memo Ochoa's save on Robert Lewandowski clearly drew the loudest applause, the loudest reaction from fans in the stadium. In this game, what was the moment, or what was the stretch where really the crowd seemed to come to life the most for you?
You know, towards the last, I would say, 10 minutes of the game, people were starting to get excited. And the first 10 minutes of the game, I think a lot of people were getting a bit nervous and wondering if the USA would be able to hang on to this. But there were so many shots that, you know, probably hit the crossbar and stuff. And as fans were saying, they were like, gosh, that crossbar, just if they could just move it a little bit. But you know what? Matt Turner had a couple of saves. And I was surprised because the England fans behind me were just like, you know, that goalkeeper is kind of good. And I turned around and I was like, yeah, you know, he plays for Arsenal. And they're like, what? Really? No wonder. So I think Matty Turner should get some respect today because he definitely got a round of applause. Like, he did get, you know, the hand to a couple of balls there from England when they were starting to look dangerous. But overall, it was really, I know it ended as a 0-0 draw, but it was definitely a very entertaining one.
Alexis, as always, brilliant stuff. Great to have you with us here on Futbol Americas. We'll see you soon, either on this show or over on ESPN FC.
Cheers, guys.
There she is, Alexis Nunes from Al Bayt Stadium, where the US and England just wrapped up. So,
thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.